Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another edition of Three Live Canes. As always, I am Chris. There's a box that denotes as such. Over there is another box that says Bill. Bill's face is above that. Steve-O will be joining us down there in that vicinity at some point. That makes up the Three Live Canes. We're going to talk to you guys about another week in Miami Hurricanes football. Excited for you guys to be here with us to have those conversations. Not for the first time in a while, nothing really crazy happening. You know, it's practice is underway, so it's not the start of practice or looking ahead to practice. It's just regular old football practice, which is obviously a blessing to have anytime you're in after the doldrums of summer. So we'll get a little bit into that. Some people, we have the 20-second clips to obviously hype up, but we also have some people that were there on the inside talking about some things. We'll get into the offensive line a little bit after some comments, and maybe things aren't going to be exactly as we expected, but we'll discuss that in a little. But before we get to all that type of fun stuff, Bill, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. I was just looking at the little calendar on my computer, and week 0 is just like 2.5 weeks away. And
23 days, Bill.
This Friday will be 3 weeks from kickoff, 9 p.m. on a Friday night, just like we drew it up. But it's still really hot out everywhere, but fall is coming up.
That's right around the corner. That ancient rivalry, Miami versus Stanford, 2 academic powerhouse private schools across the country. Probably not the California private school that you're hoping to play against as Miami, but still, it's one of them. So we'll beat on them a little bit. Why not? But we'll see how that goes. It'll be a good opener for Miami, especially while we're trying to figure out maybe how some things fit into place on the offensive line, potentially on the defensive line too. So not exactly the worst thing in the world to open up with a game like Stanford. Sergio Sanchez says, Bain dominated your Jets today. I mean, it's Ruben Bain. Of course he did. I'm trying to get out there on Friday night to the Bucs versus the Jets at MetLife Stadium. So I think I'm going to try to go to that game and sit as close as possible to the Bucs bench or like the tunnel where the Bucs are coming off the field, just so I can hype up Keontae and Ruben Bain. So like all the Jet fans are leaving the game early because who cares? It's Jets preseason football. I'll hang out for them. But I got a good question from Rambo. CF Kane, will you do projected 22? We could certainly break into that a little bit today. Today seems like a good day for it. And obviously talk about some other stuff. I think as part of the offensive line conversation, it probably makes a lot of sense. So lots of good stuff to talk about here with you guys on a Wednesday night. Miami Hurricanes football just 23 days away. We are through.
This is for the national championship for Nebraska.
He's a stud, that Brown, number 98.
Irvin's got it. Irvin's free.
Slips to the outside, tries to stiff arm, but he couldn't get by Ray Lewis.
Big time players. Step up in big games.
Hurt, dog. Don't ask me for more. Hell no. Devin Hester up to the races. That's what they needed.
That's Ricks going up for Thorpe, and it's intercepted near midfield. Sean Taylor's got another one. Who else?
Who else but Sean? Who else but us here on a Wednesday night to talk some Miami Hurricanes football? This was CF's Canes fans question. Will you do the projected 22? I think this would be a great opportunity. That's a great option there. Of all your great questions to start off shows, CF Kane fan, that might be the most effective one yet. Have that offensive line, defensive line conversation inside of a much bigger conversation too. Rambo, it's also good if Steve-O isn't here for the wide receiver talk because he'll want to have a lot of guys listed as starters. He might even list Jacoby George as the starter, just to, go back to the old days. Rambo said, the boys, who's going to be the key piece in our title run? I mean, that's a broad question. It's a broad question, Rambo. The key piece is always probably going to be, how about this? Just to get things going. Just get things going, Bill. Let's get to our top 5 key pieces each, right? To start off the show. But you can't double up. You can't copy what somebody else says. So we'll go back and forth.
So we need 10 players.
Ultimately getting to 10 people. So we're going to see where we go, but we're each kind of picking our 10 guys or our 5 key pieces.
Get a piece of paper.
Yeah, get a piece of paper. Good job being prepared for the show.
It's my son and daughter's registration paperwork for soccer. That'll be perfect for this.
Slap it on there. Just dropped $180 on a U9 girls soccer uniform. Seems silly.
$250 total for both of them to play soccer.
I'm not even going to tell you how much money it is for the season of U9 travel girls soccer. It's not a reasonable number, Bill. Not a reasonable number. Anyway, let's go back and forth. We'll go through key pieces. I'll start because I came up with the idea. No offense, Rambo. But number one key piece to any sort of title run is always going to be the quarterback. We saw our quarterback from last year's title game run the other day, and I know a lot of people were tuned in to watch Carson Beck last week. The greatest Hall of Fame game maybe ever played. Maybe the greatest preseason game in the history of the NFL.
That was wild.
Cardinals, Panthers. I mean, again, historic rivals. Cardinals, Panthers matched up there in Canton, Ohio for in front of a rabid crowd. But what a performance by Carson Beck to start that game off. And I know that what's his face had a great ending to it and ran for the touchdown. The kid from Georgia Tech, whose name escapes me at the moment, but the beauty of Carson Beck's performance, who made throw after throw after throw, there were some of those big moments he had last year. I know Carson Beck, always has his ups and downs. And obviously, ended on more of a down note in the title game, but I mean, Carson Beck looks like the real deal through exactly 1/1000th of his NFL career. But yeah. The number one, or Bill, thoughts on Carson Beck before I say Darian Mensah?
Did you see the no-look pass, too, that was floating around? I think it was
in practice the day or yesterday. Yep. He's feeling it. And that's always been Carson Beck. If he's confident, he's rolling. He's good to go. It's when things happen and he loses his confidence, or when he feels I think for Georgia, everyone was kind of against him and they made that a thing. I think that was when it all changed, but right at the moment, he is certainly at his peak right now. So he's doing pretty well for himself. But for the number one key to a title run, it's definitely going to be Darian Mensah. If he plays to the level that Carson played and a little bit more last year, if he could split the difference between Carson and Cam Ward, which is a lot, but at the same time isn't astronomically different. Carson, call him a 7, Cam a 10. If he's playing it at 8.5, I think we're right there. Right there in a championship conversation. One of the best 4 teams in the country, no doubt. Go on, Bill. Who you got?
I mean, if we're going to make a title run, you need a game wrecker on defense, right? Specifically in the interior. So I'm going to go with Moten. If he lives up to that first round potential,
okay.
The defense is kind of clicking like it was last year. You had 2 first rounders. Maybe we'll have 2 or maybe possibly 3 from this defensive line as well.
Fair point. You said, where you started there is where I would have gone next too, in terms of building out a game wrecker. I'm just going to slide to the end of the line, and I'm going to go with Damon Wilson as my other guy, my second guy, because we've seen what great edge players can do in this defense, and we see how they can affect the game nonstop. And Moten, obviously, I've said it a million times on this show, every great Canes defense, every championship team has had at least one hyper elite defensive tackle leading the way, and we have that on this defense. But certainly teams of recent history for Miami that have been great have had great edge play, and that's where Damon Wilson comes in. A different kind of edge than we've had in the past, but that kind of guy that will just as easily slot into a first-round pick if he plays up to the potential that he certainly seems to be playing at right now. Who you got?
It's crazy. We're on the 4th pick of this, and we haven't talked about the best player in college football in Malachi Tony. So I'm gonna throw his name out there, and just say if he continues to progress, right, he is that difference maker, right? I think even back to that Ole Miss game, there's a 3rd and 8. He caught a 4-yard pass, broke 3 tackles, got the first down. that's not going to really show up in any stat line, but we score a touchdown a little bit later. So best player, one of, if not the best pure football players in the country, will obviously be a very big piece to the championship puzzle should we get there.
And I'm gonna jump off, like do the same thing I did last time and kind of like jump off the back of your pick. Cooper Barkate, like he should be the best number 2 receiver Miami has had in.
Oh, Steve was about to come flying in here.
Like, yeah, Steve,
George.
His neck hairs in his neck just popped up. Like, oh my God, where's Cooper Barkate from? Sneaky Broward resident. But I would say Cooper Barkate is the best number 2 receiver. Now let me think about this. Now Miami has had since. Oh man, I think I don't want to give a year. I don't want to give a year, but I want to like. All right, I'm gonna come back to it when you're doing your thing. But I'm thinking 2017. 2017.
Was that?
What was Amon's freshman year?
2016, because that's when we won the bowl game against West Virginia.
Oh yeah, 2016.
Yeah. And 2017 was the big, the dream season.
All right, it was 2016. Stacey Coley to Amon's number 1. But honestly, might be probably better than Coley, which against Devo's pissed. So like, we might be going even further back. Like, yeah, Braxton, like with Amon and Braxton, like, yeah, like we're going back a good ways. But where Cooper Barkate has the potential to be a second 1,000-yard receiver on this team, and that's something that has never happened for Miami. So if he can be like a true 1B, and then honestly, with the way you use Malachi Tony, he's weapon 1. He's offensive juggernaut 1. So, like, Barkate is your true receiver out there that has a great rapport with Mensah. So, like, if we're looking at Barkate as an 80-catch, 1,000-yard guy, and plus whatever Malachi can give you all over the field, I mean, that offense is as good as it's going to get. Like, that's an offense that is incredibly, incredibly dangerous with what we know our defense can be under Heatherman. So, like, I'm going to go Cooper Barkate as my number 3.
Yeah, Dawson's offense usually goes through the slot, right, historically. So, Tony's going to be that guy. But, right, if you have other pieces on the outside, things can get very, very spooky. So for my pick, and I know we're going to talk about offensive line, right, I think if we're going to make a title run, Mr. Samson Okunlola, it's going to have to be, right, the dude, right? He needs to, raise that game up to maybe not top 10 Francis Mauigoa level, but to, right, an all ACC level performance in order to potentially protect Mensah's blind side should he be the left tackle.
Right, which is something we're going to talk about quite a bit here. No, I thought I had another one. I'm back at 2012 right now, but yeah, and that's a big part of this conversation today, exactly how it's all going to fit in, but obviously with people kind of pointing the conversation back in Pancake Honcho's way as potentially being a left tackle after some time thinking maybe not. So we'll see how that goes. That's part of the conversation we're going to have. My 4th guy was also like, Travis Benjamin in 2010. Travis Benjamin, 2010, number 2 receiver. It's maybe since 2010.
Who was the number 1 that year?
What's his name? Hankerson.
Okay.
So that might be it. That might be it. I'm gonna. This is like legitimately have to ask Steve-O what he thinks. Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm gonna stop there. We have CF Kane fans saying so long time on this list and no DBs. Well, I'm happy to do the work for you, CF Kane fan, because
you're gonna take mine.
With what Bryce has given us. Well, let me go the other way. Knowing what we had last year with Deontay Scott, knowing how good he was and how important he was to that position, it would be hard hearing potentially our best defensive back, Bryce Fitzgerald, all the potential in the world, playing that nickel position. To me, it's a case of this is our most important position in maybe our back seven. This is the most important position in the back seven. We need this guy, our best player, playing this incredibly important position. That tells me that Bryce Fitzgerald's going to have a humongous season. Now, I know that he's definitely going to play more than just the nickel. He's going to play some safety. He's going to play single high. He could really do whatever you need him to do. But the fact that our best player is moving to this significant position where we had a Thorpe Award candidate, a guy that could have easily been a top pick in the draft if people understood the need for nickel positions. So to me, he has got to be one of the top guys when you're talking about he could be a reason that we win a national title. Just like Keontae could have been a reason we won the national title last year with the plays that he made throughout when he was healthy and then obviously later in the playoffs.
He needs to be that turnover machine, right? When he has six picks last year, if he can even just match that this year, that's major, especially coming from that nickel spot.
For sure.
That was going to be my next pick. I didn't think you were going to go there. So I'll go. I'll save him for my last one. I'm stuck between two defensive linemen, but I'm going to go with.
I was gonna go with one next.
I'm gonna go with Armando Blunt. Now I got you.
Damn it! That was my sleeper fifth pick.
And why is he? Why do I have him ahead of Scott? Just because I think inside outside he has to essentially take over the reins for Ruben Bain from that big DN spot, setting the edge. Providing pass rush. He's going to be on the field a lot. We saw flashes, right? Quite a bit last year. 5-star talent. If I'm thinking, if we're talking about quarterfinals, semifinals, right? Blunt's going to be a major part of that.
Yeah, I really felt like Blunt was going to be the perfect sneaky sleeper fifth pick because, like you said, inside outside, we talk about doing our 22. Here are our starters. Not a person that you guarantee a starting position because, again, where does he really fit in best? Is he on him starting at defensive end? You could. Do you want to have him as your third D tackle? You could. Whatever works best there. But yeah, he's a perfect fit for that. If he clicks and he hits at the highest level, he's another one of those guys you're talking about as a potential first rounder, game changer, game wrecker, all that fun stuff. All right, got to switch gears a little bit. I was going to go a little off the map. I kind of like what Sergio said, bringing up Jordan Lyle. But really for me, it's whoever the number 2 running back is going to be important. But Mark Fletcher was on such a he was a good player, and he's been a really good player for us throughout his career. But playoffs Mark Fletcher was as good as a Miami running back has been in a while, right? Playoff Mark Fletcher was a different animal. It's a different type of beast, right? If we get playoff Mark Fletcher every single game, and that version of what we saw was the pinnacle of what we could have ever expected when we saw him play in high school. This is the best version of Mark Fletcher, right? If we get that Mark Fletcher for an entire season, then that's a say what you want about the offensive line. That is a guy that can carry the offense on his back when things aren't clicking, and things should click a lot. So I'm going to go with Mark Fletcher if he can play to that level.
That's a good one. To end it, I'm going to go with the guy that might be splitting reps with Bryce Fitzgerald, and that's Omar Thornton as the other nickel / safety, right? I think you know what you're getting with Poyser. Could still has a lot of room to grow, but just what we've been hearing about Thornton, right? You knew he could hit. He can play physical, but the coverage ability, right? There's some good stuff coming out from early camp about that. So I think about him, right? Kind of Fitzgerald, replacing Keontae, right? I think about Thornton replacing Jacoby Thomas and how good he was for us, both in coverage, being physical, kind of doing all those little things. Good open field tackling. I think Thornton even potentially elevate that, right? Just with what he can do on the field. So thinking a title run, Omar Thornton having a big part of that.
That's a good one. Yep. And like, honestly, for the last spot, it was like there are so many guys on the defensive side of the ball that you could say, all right, how about this guy? All right, how about this guy? And like the list goes on. It's any of the corners. Any of the corners could fit in that. Like, why can't it be Damari? Right?
I was thinking OJ, he's getting the first round buzz. If he is that first round corner, right, that's huge too. But
if he's the first round corner, if Lucas like clicks in all cylinders, Ethan O'Connor is a guy they put a lot of faith in. Like, what if Damari, like all the athletic potential comes to? What if like there's so many guys there that it could be just a corner? But then you also throw it up and you're like, what if this is Chase Smith's season? Like, what if it's been unlocked? What if it's been unlocked? All that we had 6 years ago. I
had him and Torre kind of in that last spot. And then Thornton kind of just took it away. But
those guys, it was, but I mean, we'll go through the 22 now. And like, we'll kind of, as we go through it, like we'll kind of hit on that factor of how much this person's success in this position could change things and could see what Liz. I guarantee you, Steve-O would have, like, we're talking now up to 15. I guarantee you there would have been a third receiver mentioned. I could promise you there would have been a receiver mentioned 100%.
Easy.
But I think, like, even still, like, that's another part of the puzzle, right? Like, we didn't list the third receiver for Miami, but like, honestly, like Van Jacobs, like, he's going to be an important part of this thing too, right? Like
Josh Moore,
Elijah Lofton at the tight end spot. He's going to be a part of it. Like, it's a lot. A lot of question marks, but at the same time, a lot of guys that have the opportunity to do something really special. So, hey, could be worse. Could be Florida with those ugly all blue uniforms. No, we didn't mention offensive line at all. Like,
I'd say Sampson in there.
Oh yeah, Sampson. That's right. Fair point. Rodriguez. I was thinking about Rodriguez as an option at center. So, all right, let's start moving through this thing, and we won't belabor the point and beat the dead horse of certain positions. We know like certain guys are going to be in certain spots. Like, it's very easy to your Mensa, your Fletcher with your Marty Brown and your Lyle and those guys backing them up. We won't talk about the backup quarterback situation because honestly, rather not. Let's save that for an episode down the line if we have to panic, and then we'll just freak out one day. ACC ref Sergio mentioned a couple of times, but make sure it gets up there.
It was pretty crazy. We were one of the most penalized teams in the country during the year. We get in the playoffs, and it's just clean football.
All of a sudden, they liked the idea about Miami winning some games. All of a sudden, those ratings came out. I guess they thought it was pretty good. Yeah, pretty good, huh? Anyway, so quarterback, we feel good. Fletcher. Backfield pretty solid, right? So then we'll slide out to the receivers. Two of the receivers are very easy to understand. We have Malachi Toney as our slot / do everything / whatever he wants to be. He's the quarterback, whatever. And Cooper Barkate, which brings us to the third receiver. You know, however you want to split up the receiver, like names, your X or Z, or whatever you want to call it. But the conversation is Van Jacobs, Cam Vaughn, younger guys, Josh Moore, one of the freshmen maybe stepping up. Upshaw is another guy that I know is, got a good amount of buzz. Bill, where do you think for that third receiver spot, knowing that we have the slot covered so well and Cooper Barkate at one of them?
Yeah. I mean, my first thought is Van Jacobs, just the speed element that, he brings. I think we're going to be a lot more vertical in our passing attack, but I really think it's going to be a heavy rotation, right, for that third spot between all those guys you just mentioned. It could also be, scheme or personnel, specific, smaller cornerbacks. Maybe you get Josh Moore out there, slower cornerbacks or secondary. You get Jacobs out there, but just knowing what Malley brings, kind of the player that Barkade is, I think Jacobs is kind of the best complement to that group. He'll keep people, you have to respect the speed, right? So that kind of opens up a little bit more of that field for the other two who kind of do all their work, in that short to intermediate area.
Yeah, and like we know what Malachi Tony can do when he has the ball in space, and like ideally your deep threat will blow the top off and force the safety to get deep, and in which case there's space, right? And Cooper Barkate, speaking of compliments, it's such a good compliment for Malachi Tony because you have guys like those guys running leveled routes. Like, how do you account for both guys who can kill you in the intermediate? So definitely works out well, and I would agree that Van Jacobs is probably the guy. But I like the idea of Josh Moore potentially because of our next position, tight end, being a tougher position to predict because of where we are at the tight end position. But Josh Moore could certainly, like, maybe there are spots where you go 4 wide where maybe you would have had a tight end in previous years because I feel like Joshua Moore matched up against their big nickel or their strong safety or their middle linebacker, or potentially like in goal line situations, will put you in a great position. So Josh Moore could, like you said, find his way to sneak in there a little bit. And at tight end, Elijah Lofton is the starter because he has to be the starter. And because you really don't know what you have behind him so much. You know, Luka Gilbert, we know what happened. Gavin Miller, like, you have a tight end that's a freshman that was highly regarded, but how far away is he? Same thing for Briggs. You have a former walk-on, Owen Ruskavich. Like, you don't have a lot. You don't have a lot over there.
No, I do think you do have some athleticism. Lofton lost a bunch of weight. Briggs brings something a little bit different. Whoever can block the best is probably going to be on the field the most. Even kind of going back to Josh Moore, if he can, show or prove that, right, he can, be an effective blocker. He'll probably get, a lot of those snaps. I think, my one criticism, right, last year, and we've talked about it, is we had Alex Bellman on the field a lot, lined up as a receiver, on obvious passing downs, and it was just kind of that's not his game, right? It was kind of almost like a wasted body out there. So you substitute that with a Josh Moore, or Dalen Upshaw, or one of those types of guys, right? That gives you just another option in the passing game. But I think if Lofton can just be an effective blocker, be a move the chains type guy, catch passes in the flat, that'll help. Just be the stereotypical safety blanket. No one's going to be Arroyo from this group this year. We'll see what happens, as they develop, but I think expectations are pretty low for the tight end position. So whatever you can get out of them, as long as it's consistent and they're not, hurting you, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah. Like if we can get, and like honestly, to this point, running backs in the pass game, a lot of what I think they would maybe do with Lofton is to line him up in the backfield some to give different looks, and then like let that be a mismatch he can create, because I don't think he creates as much when he's just lined up purely as a tight end because where his limitations are. So like moving him around and making him more of a chess piece, I think is the most valuable way to use him. I think the greatest comparison you can make for him would be like a Chris Herndon. Though even a Herndon, like, he had his 1 year in the spotlight, he also was able to shine when other guys were like the centerpiece, whether it be at a tight end or at the receiver spot. So we'll see what they can make out of him. If he could be a consistent 400, 500-yard guy, then I think everyone would be pretty happy with that. Just be consistent. Don't drop the ball. Now to the offensive line, where, speaking of dropping the ball, like, this is where you cannot afford to after having one of the greatest offensive lines in Hurricane history last year, which, lauded with as many accolades as you could possibly throw in an offensive line. Even just to utter those words, like, one of the best offensive line Miami has ever had, that means a lot. It means a lot considering some of the lines Miami has had, be it the UN line of the 83 season and 2001 with McKinney and 2013 with all those guys that were brought in. By Jeff Stoutland, like, there's a certain pedigree there. Now you're looking at an offensive line that lost the majority of those guys. So where exactly does that leave us without your Coopers, without your Bells, without your Maui Noahs, without your stable leader at center that's been there before and done it before in other organizations like we've had the past couple of years. And then you mentioned before, Bill, that there is the potential that what we expected for maybe a calendar year, I forget when exactly Jackson Canwell committed, but what we expected may not be the end result if what the reports coming out of camp are, that maybe it is going to be a guy that we were hyped about 4 years ago committing. Maybe he's the left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the buzz around camp is that, Samson looks really good at left tackle. And, even just, I remember when him and, Francis came out, we were kind of having the same discussion. It was, Samson was like, it seemed like he was built in a lab to play left tackle, right? And Marinello was, right tackle, maybe guard. That kind of worked itself out. Right tackle, 3-year starter, All-American, top 10 pick. Great. But I think, right, as we were talking, we thought that, Cantwell was going to be the left tackle and everything kind of like fit into place a little bit. But if Samson's the left tackle, things I think become a little bit murkier in terms of who's going to play where. So it's an interesting, puzzle to fit in. And there's going to be some inexperience. We're going to have some older guys too. So how do we blend that? I'm kind of jotting down, where I think they may end up. The right side, maybe the inexperienced side this time.
Let's play it out with 2 options. Let's play it out. The Jackson Cantwell's our left tackle. So Jackson Cantwell's our left tackle. Like, go left to right. What do we got?
If Cantwell's the left tackle, your left guard is probably Samson, right? He did pretty good there. Your center is Rodriguez. I think that's probably the one consistent thing, right? And then your right guard is probably Max Buchanan, and your right tackle is McCoy.
Right. I would agree. That would make sense.
And then if it's Samson's at left tackle, McCoy at left guard, right? Rodriguez at center, Max B at right guard, and then Cantwell Cogden at right tackle. I mean, that's 2 first-year starters, 2, one potential true freshman, and then a redshirt freshman or second-year freshman, whatever they call it now. Can you swap McCoy for Max Buchanan and have them swap so you kind of have a little bit more balanced?
Maybe.
We'll see.
Or do you have Cantwell play left guard, and then keep him on the left side, and then keep McCoy at right tackle? Then when Cantwell, he just kicks out the tackle next year, hypothetically.
And I mean, I don't know about McCoy at tackle. He just doesn't seem to move like that. But maybe lost weight. Who knows? Maybe that's his more natural position. But there's kind of the one constant, right? Is Rodriguez at center. I think we're good there.
Right.
And I think that the remaining 4 or 5 guys, including Cogden, can kind of be mix and match. But I do see wherever Cantwell is, I think Cogden is going to rotate in there as well. Similar to what kind of Samson and McCoy did right this year at left guard, or last year at left guard.
Sergio saying Cogden's making too much noise to be on the bench. I mean, ideal world would be like kind of not ideal world, but at the same time ideal is if like Cogden is really killing it and he wins the right tackle job because he's doing so great there, and he's our right tackle, and then Cantwell plays left guard because while he's getting ready to go out to tackle, and then you have Pancake, Cantwell, Rodriguez, McCoy stays at guard, and Cogden at right tackle, and you have 2 true freshmen that are playing at a high level on the offensive line. I mean,
that's scary, regardless of how talented.
A little scary, Bill, but at the same time, I mean, long term, puts you in a pretty good spot. And then all of a sudden in 2027, it's like you got your bookend tackles and these 2 awesome sophomores that played a lot as freshmen. They just got to fill in the interior.
This year, I kind of view kind of the offensive line as almost like in transition, because I think they hit big on Cantwell, Cogden, Irvin. I think we're going to have a very top 3 offensive line starting in 2027 going forward. This year kind of it can still be very good. I think there's just a lot of question marks, both around experience and just overall talent that we're running out there. But it doesn't have to be the greatest offensive line in history, but it would be nice. But at Stanford, they also play a week 0 game, so they're going to be kind of get their kinks out. You got your FCS, you got Central Michigan, and then at Wake Forest too. That's to start the year, so it's not murderer's row, but you don't want to potentially get into a dogfight with Stanford or Wake Forest because your offensive line isn't gelling, or you're still mixing and matching. I almost think we're 3 weeks out by kind of the end of next week. You kind of got your 5, and you got to let them practice, get it together, and hit the ground running come September 4th.
I know Steve-O said before that if you don't have your 5 by the time you start fall practice, you don't have 5. But we'll see. The offensive staff, and especially the offensive line coaching at Miami, has a lot of leeway. So we could be going up to game 1 and not knowing who the starters are, and I'll still feel pretty good about it because I feel like whoever they do put out there is going to be ready to roll. And honestly, on the defensive side of the ball, this group should be just about as trusted as the offensive side because of what we've seen in recent years and the way that some guys have developed. And speaking of the Mesidors and Motons of the world, rapidly developed in their last year to year and a half of play. And though you lose 2 first-round picks on the edge, which for a lot of programs would be a killer, an absolute killer, you still have the potential of having this year's defensive line be better than last year's defensive line if everything clicks the way it could click, with a 3rd-year Justin Scott and a 3rd-year Blunt and Damon Wilson coming in and Marquise Lightfoot not as a freshman. There's a lot of good things that could happen here with this defensive line. So, Bill, why don't you run it across the board who you would have as your 4 starters on the D-line?
Yeah, I think on the edge, you have Wilson, then your 2 tackles, Scott Moten, locked in. And then that last edge is kind of your question mark, right? I would write in Armando Blunt in there, right? Kind of as that bigger edge. To at least start, right? Obviously, passing situations, it's going to look different. But I think if you just said, hey, get your 4 best dudes out there, I think those are the best 4, and they actually kind of fit. Schematically, right? Wilson is kind of in that Mesidor role, and then Blunt's more in that Bain role.
That's fair. And I think the Lightfoot versus Blunt thing is probably going to be more situational than anything else, because I do think that it makes a lot of sense to have Blunt on the field as much as possible. And I would feel like they'd be a lot more confident in who they have backing up at tackle with Keona Davis and Jarquez Carter as those portal additions they had. I think they feel good about them as reserves, so then you could afford to put Blunt out there more consistently on the end just to see what you have with him. Because Armando Blunt, young guy, we always talk about the age thing. If his trajectory was always going to be a little slower getting off the start because of the age, but it was also one that went pretty much up at some point. So I think we're good. Does not having Lowe hurt us at all? I mean, the greatest point to make, I think, Bill, you made it last week, was that we didn't see him. So it's not like we lost him in terms of we had this thing. Now it's not here. What do we do without it? It was always a concept of what could happen. And I don't look at this defensive line and say, man, we really need a dynamic edge rusher. We have a dynamic edge rusher. Oh, man, we really need size and power as an edge like we had with Bain. We have size and power as an edge. Hey, we really need a pure pass rusher. That's all he does, go out there, rush the quarterback or cover, apparently, with Marquise Lightfoot. Now we have that too. So I'm not looking at it like this is a guy we needed and we don't have him and we're screwed because of it. It would just be another piece of a puzzle that I'd be happy about. But would we even list him as a starter? No.
I probably would have had him potentially as the backup to Blunt. Right, as that kind of that bigger end, but again, it's all theory, right? Then versus we lost Blunt transferred out, we still had Lowe as the unknown. That would be a much different conversation,
right?
But yeah, I mean, losing a 5-star, right? You expect them to be huge contributors, right? First rounds, day 2 type picks. So kind of that big, if Blunt's. Whatever, if you need another big end to put out there, who do you put out there? You really don't have it. My thought would be, kind of Keona Davis, potentially, short yardage or kind of that 2nd and 3 type where you just want bigger bodies out there. He could probably, he did it at Nebraska. He can kind of bump out too. So there's a lot of versatility amongst these guys, but I think your first 4, Scott, right, 5-star, Blunt, 5-star, Moten, high level, D tackle, potential first round pick, and then Damon Wilson. I don't remember if he was a 5-star coming out, but definitely has produced like a 5-star.
Pretty sure he was.
I got it.
Yeah, 5-star. 21st national player in the nation. Pretty good.
Yep.
But that group in front, we have a group with a pretty good amount of experience coming back to our most experienced player who, I don't know. I forget exactly how many years Mohamed Touré has played, but I'm pretty sure it's 8. Pretty sure this is 8. I think he had 2 full careers. He had a full career at Rutgers. Now he's going to have a full career at Miami. But Mo Touré, Chase Smith, Cam Pruitt, Bonner floating around there, young guys like Wiley, kicking around there too behind them. But it seems like we're going to have the most experienced starting 2 linebackers maybe in the country coming in with a combined 13 years of experience playing college football, which is hilarious to think about. With Chase Smith and Touré. Would you agree those are our 2, or do you like potentially a Cam Pruitt?
Yeah, I think the first 2 out there are Smith and Touré. Pruitt kind of gives you a little bit of scheme versatility too. If you needed him to, cover or whatever blitz, he can kind of do it. Also, I think Pruitt's the 3rd guy. Not that I think we're going to be in kind of 3 linebacker sets very often, but yeah, we see what we're doing in recruiting at linebacker now. So I think that room's going to kind of look a little bit different going forward from an athletic profile standpoint. But, if there's one position where you're like, hey, I just want older experienced guys, they've seen it all, right? That's linebacker. That's kind of an easy one.
Yeah.
Touré is, I think, a little bit more athletic than a lot of people give him credit for, just because he's been around so long. We're just assuming he's like some old slow guy, but there's some athleticism there. Chase Smith was kind of one of the more freakier athletes coming out, in his class 6-7 years ago, whenever that was.
Yeah.
So if they're healthy, right, and that's kind of been the big question mark with both of them. If they can be healthy and continue to develop, right, those are grown men out there, right? They should be like in their 3rd or 4th year in the league, so they should just be entering their primes.
All right, let's see. Was Touré's first year 20?
Oh, I have his stats up. He has stats for 2019. So
2019. Jesus. Was he somewhere before Rutgers?
No, he was always at Rutgers.
All right, 2019. So 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So he has 6 years of experience. This is his 7th year. And Chase, 2021. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is his 6th. So, yep, 13 years. Not bad. If you can get it, though, we'll take it. Because you need experience. We're going to have a couple changes in the secondary, but obviously, like the biggest one, Jacoby Thomas, his loss cannot be understated here. That he was also a great player for us. It's just that when you also lose Keontae Scott, it's kind of overshadows things in the secondary because you're replacing 2 of your most consistent players, both portal additions, which obviously portal additions that came in without the hype and excitement that you would have expected, considering how both of those players performed as Hurricanes, right? I don't think anyone expected Jacoby Thomas to be as good as he was. I don't think anyone on the earth expected Keontae Scott to be as good as he was. But both guys turned out to be very good Canes for us, which opens up 2 big spots. One we know is going to get filled by Bryce Fitzgerald, and the other one we feel pretty good about being filled by Omar Thornton. Just exactly where it all fits in is a little bit trickier. And then looking at the cornerback room, you have 100 guys now. This is a team that we were on this show talking about how we only had like 3 human bodies at corner or something crazy one year, and now we got 4 guys that could probably start in a lot of teams across the country.
5 guys.
Five guys, yeah, and not including incoming guys. So,
JJ Dunnigan is. I'm writing it down. I had him kind of next to Omar at nickel. I just do Bryce at safety for the sake of conversation, but I think you got OJ and Lucas as kind of your 1-2, even though it's kind of your 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, with Ethan and Damari. And then you got, Jabori Antoine too, who's coming into his second year. So it's a kind of an embarrassment of riches, right, at DB. And we saw, right, you need that throughout the course of a year, right?
Right. And Tebow was here.
Injuries, things like that. So, we're deep, we're talented, there's athleticism. This is probably the best secondary since the early 2000s.
Ooh.
All around corner safety, depth.
Depth is, I think, that's the key, right? Because like you go back to the Mike Jack and all that, but Jaquan and all,
Artie Burns and Cornelder,
but depth wise, it's a whole different animal. Because you can even go like if Steve-O was here, like Jalen Waters would have been mentioned.
Yeah, you have all the freshmen too. That
like there's a lot of dudes, a lot of guys out. The Camden Portis, like potentially like a nickel, I think people were saying, and then like Chris Ewald is floating out there as a second year guy now. Like corners don't wait long. It's not like offensive line where you're like, let's develop them and all. Like corners usually don't wait very long to get on the field. So like Ewald could be peeking around trying to get his spot too. So.
And then you have 2 guys by the name of Dante Wright and Amir Sears coming next year. So it's a very, very crowded room. But you have 5 true corners, I'm not including nickel in that, but 5 true corners that can play at a high level. We've had maybe 1 or 2 that in the last 10 or 15, right? I mean, not 10 years because the Mike Jack, but for a while recently, it's been rough out there. It's been rough out there.
Yeah.
And then a guy like Poyser, who really we don't talk about just because he's just kind of that solid guy back there. But don't forget, he was a young guy. He was a second year freshman.
Second year, yeah.
Freshman All-American at Jacksonville State. So right, there's a lot of meat left on that bone too for him to kind of take that next step. But I think this is maybe you can say besides maybe running back, you could say is the best room, high end talent plus depth.
I would say confidently that our cornerback room I would feel better about than our entire running back room. Talking about the entire room, I don't think I would. You could tell me like you feel better about running back as a whole than corner. And I would probably say the same thing about safety. And it would depend on how we're defining the nickel. Where that I would be like, because I'm like mentally putting it towards safety, but it also is towards corner. And that's only because Bryce is kind of in between, and Keontae was like, he's really like a safety in other realms of other defenses. But so as a whole, the DBs, I would say I feel better about the DBs than the running back room, without hesitation, because we had so many guys.
I wouldn't push back on that, especially knowing OJ and Lucas are probably day 1 to day 2 guys. O'Connor, Damari get drafted. Jabori down the road is a big time prospect. So it's pretty crazy as I'm kind of writing all the names down and stuff. It's just a lot.
It's different. It's different than just about every other position, I think. What we have back there in the secondary, like there's a lot of other positions. We're like, okay, we're good. all right, and these guys kind of fizzle out down the line. There's no fizzling out. It's honestly like with the receiver room where like it doesn't fizzle out for a long time. With 3 guys that are going to start and then going 3 deep, like there's a lot of receivers, there's a lot of DBs, a lot of corners, a lot of safeties that can play. So,
I mean, going through this exercise, I mean, I feel really good about the defense. Really good about the defense. Offense, right? That the offensive line is a question mark. I'm not going to say it's a concern, but I think it's fair to say it's a pretty big question mark at this point. But although you have one of the best teachers and developers in the country, both as your offensive line coach and your head coach, so it's not. I don't think it's not going to be like a below average group nationally. But even if it's just like above average nationally, that's a pretty significant downgrade for us. And I think that's the floor, is just like an above average unit.
That's the idea, right? It's if the offensive line is your biggest question, and is also the position where we would feel naturally the best considering what we have as a staff, like I feel okay. If the biggest question was the quarterback room, you're terrified. If the biggest question was the receiver room, you're scared, right? But the offensive line, like I have to buy into the fact that things will be okay there. And then brings us to the end of the road here. Who is our punt returner and kick returner? I mean,
I think you keep Malley at punt returner.
It's hard not to. He's just a different. Like he just makes everything look different, sound different, feel different back there. So it'd be hard to take him off of there. There's going to be other guys looking for playing time that we could probably like find our way in. Like, I don't know how some of these guys would respond to it, but yeah. And Malachi is your best guy. So anytime you get him on the field, get him on the field. Then who knows? Maybe some of the young receivers can find time in that way. Maybe as a running back, maybe Jordan Lyle can, use his speed, his long speed there at the kick return spot. Like, we'll see how it shakes out.
Did Jacobs return kicks at South Carolina?
I don't know.
Let's see here. I'm trying to think of like the fastest guys we have, but I mean, he has no kick return stats, so great. Even as good as Keelan Marion was, like as a receiver for us, right? He was known as that special teams guy, and we really didn't see much of that at Miami. So I think a lot of touchbacks in the college game anyway. But
yeah,
I think you keep Malley punt return. I think that's kind of a no brainer. He just gives you too much to put someone else back there. If you're worried about the hits or snap count, right? I think we have enough at receiver to make up for that. Throughout the course of a game, it's only 3 to 6 times, right?
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy.
No, I think we'll be okay. We'll make it work. We have certainly have the dogs to do it. So, I mean,
that game's less than 3 months away.
Woo! Right around the corner.
That's
Do a
my
countdown
birthday.
just for
That's
that.
my birthday weekend too.
Oh, shut up, Bill. No one cares.
Ship the family out that week.
Got important stuff. Hey, there's a vacation coming up this weekend. Oh yeah, where are we going? Where are you going?
You're going.
Or the whole family's going up to South Bend. Not great. Terrible place. Terrible place.
Yeah, can't imagine.
CF Cane fans booting us off the air, so we will go ahead and leave. It's 10 o'clock anyway. You guys have things to do, people to see, shows to watch probably. New season of Reacher started today. You watch Reacher, Bill?
Yeah.
Great show. I'm not a big, I don't watch a lot of shows, but I especially by myself, I'll watch something my wife puts on and I just have to. But Reacher, I sat down and watched it myself. It's incredibly violent and also funny for stupid reasons. So it's right in the wheelhouse.
I was gonna say that sounds like something I'd be interested in.
Bill, right in the wheelhouse, Bill. Once you get going on it, it's gonna be all right, I gotta watch the heck out of this.
What platform is it on?
Amazon Prime Video. Yeah, everyone's got Amazon. So Lanterns starts. Oh yeah, and that's on. That does seem interesting because it's the what's his face on it Sunday. I always forget the guy's name, but he was the coach in Friday Night Lights, and he was the star of the show Early Edition, which is when he got a newspaper the day before like everything happened, and he like saved the world a bunch of times. Love that show when I was like 12. I don't know why, but anyway, Kyle something. Kyle, right? Kyle something.
The coach from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, it's only like a Kyle, so it kind of throws me off. But Kyle,
Eric Taylor's the fictional coach. What's his real name? Kyle Chandler.
Yeah, Kyle Chandler. Super generic name. Kyle McLaughlin. You just throw names out. I mean, then again, I don't know. Maybe Bill's wrong. He just did AI something. Kyle Chandler sounds right though. But guy's a good actor. Anyway.
Also in Wolf of Wall Street, he was the FBI agent.
Oh yeah, that connecting all the dots. But anyway, that'll do it for us. Other than Bill, besides his TV shows, get some final thoughts for the people.
I mean, going through all these names, I might have to reevaluate my season predictions coming up. I've been working out. I've been crunching numbers, looking at the almanacs and stuff, trying to figure this all out. But I think
weather reports in South Bend.
It'd be a very fortuitous season for Miami.
I like to hear, Bill. That's what I like to hear.
I know practice has been, essentially shut off from the media. Hopefully, D-Money can sneak in there and keep getting us the good intel. But I mean, it's closing in fast, man.
Just 23 days, and we're right there. Next week's show will be 16 days away. Then we're pretty much doing preview stuff. So, like game preview, not big picture preview. And we have the prediction show coming up probably in 2 weeks. 2 weeks? Yeah, I guess so, right?
August 26th.
Woo! Can't wait. But anyway, that'll do it for us. Appreciate you guys tuning into the show. We always appreciate everyone that tunes in to watch on Wednesday nights with us, whether you're on Twitter or on YouTube or on whatever, or you watch it back later. Thank you to people that go back and rewatch it. We'll be back with you guys every Wednesday, including next Wednesday here at 9 o'clock to talk about the Miami Hurricanes football program as we continue to roll to what could be, like Bill said, a very fortuitous season for the Miami Hurricanes. So for Bill and Steve-O, who's probably out there still working at the field, working with the young receivers as they get ready for the season, I'm Chris. Thank you guys for tuning into the show. We appreciate you. Thank everybody at Canes Insight. We'll see you again next week right here on 3 Live Canes. Everyone have a great week.
This is for the national championship for Nebraska.
He's a stud, that Brown, number 98.
Irvin's got it. Irvin's free. Slips to the outside, tries to stiff arm, but he couldn't get by Ray Lewis.